Welcome, everyone. My name is Nicole Engelbert. I'm the Vice President of Higher Education Development here at Oracle. I am absolutely delighted to be hosting today's Customer Spotlight featuring one of my most favorite customers, Baylor University. Now, kind of for the record, I love all of our customers equal, but Baylor is pretty special, and I think you'll find that out kind of today. Baylor is a brilliant case study in how effective executive sponsorship can ignite, I'm going to put that in quotation marks, and a successful cloud deployment. So I am confident that our speakers today will inspire you, as well as provide really important and valuable information to inform your own cloud migration journey. But before we get to the good stuff, before we get started, I'd like to see kind of how many folks out there are college basketball fans. So let's go to our first poll. Last week, Baylor won its first ever basketball championship. So which of the following answer choices here is a false statement about this historic winning game? Okay, I'm going to give everyone a second to answer those questions. Okay. Baylor's advantage, in part, result of university's culture of joy. Well, I'd like to think that is absolutely true because Baylor is a very joyful place. The correct answer, or the correct false answer, is that Baylor beat an undefeated 31-0 Gonzaga team, not by 14 points, but by 16 points. So well done, Baylor. But we don't want to beat Gonzaga up too much because they're also an Oracle customer as well. So today we are here to talk about Baylor's core values and how these are shaping the future of the student and employee experience. And so to that end, we are going to share a very short video, one that gives me, quite frankly, the shivers kind of every time I see it. And a little kind of point of trivia, the young woman who was featured in this video is an actual Baylor student. So let's roll the tape.
I know this place, and I know it at its core and its soul. The mission of Baylor is to prepare our students for the future, to be critical thinkers so that they can grow and develop as the world changes dramatically in the years ahead. In order to evolve, we needed a plan, one that would catapult us into the next phase of higher education. Oracle Cloud is the solution for change that allows us to reach historic milestones so our students can thrive. You have to give light to discover what's possible. While education faces many modern challenges, we are choosing growth at Baylor University and creating new opportunities for students to shape their future and illuminate their lives.
So today we are going to talk about kind of how Baylor transformed their business processes, kind of to put themselves on a path to achieving kind of R1 status, kind of as an institution. So please join me in welcoming the always wonderful Brett Dalton, who's the Chief Business Officer, and Jon Allen, who is the CIO and CISO at Baylor University. Brett, Jon, why don't you introduce yourselves and tell us a bit about Baylor?
Thanks, Nicole. You've gotten me excited with this introduction. Let me share one thing, though, to give credit to the Baylor women. That was not the first basketball national championship. The Baylor women have won 3 previous championships, so we're really excited that the men have joined them, but they've got some work to do to catch up with the women. That seems to be the story of my life. But it's great to be with you today. And great to be a part of Baylor and the transformation that has been allowed by our migration to the Oracle Cloud. So look forward to talking to everyone about that today and sharing our experiences our mistakes and our successes. So thank you for having us.
Jon?
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. I appreciate it. It is really exciting to get to talk about this journey, which has been long. These journeys aren't things that happen in 6 months. And so I think as we reflect back, it's always interesting to see those key inflection points and to share those with our community. And I think that's the thing that's exciting in higher education is we do share. We share these journeys and we really share the wins and the losses and make sure that the community is stronger overall. So appreciate the opportunity.
Excellent. Thank you. And we are here at Oracle, we are incredibly proud of being a partner with Baylor University. I think it's a very special relationship, and we're certainly proud of your kind of strong kind of national and historic kind of heritage. Now, 2 years ago, Baylor embarked on the ambitious pursuit kind of R1 status, kind of joining some of the nation's top kind of research institutions. But kind of as you kind of launched into this kind of initiative, a few discoveries were made. There were a number of roadblocks kind of in your back office processes that maybe needed a bit of a addressing or needed to be kind of removed. Would you mind kind of digging into that kind of a bit for us?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Nicole. So, we started this process back in 2016. It was a number of years ago, and it was really at the beckoning of our Chief Human Resource Officer, Cheryl Gotchas, and her explanation of coming in and trying to be strategic in resource management of our faculty and staff, which, as you can imagine, for a university is really our key resource. I mean, that is what we are about. And the inability to do that because of the fragmented system environment that she found herself in, totaling between 18 and 19 systems to manage the HR processes, all the things around educating your faculty and staff, doing performance management, doing benefits management, doing applications for recruiting. It was all fragmented in these hosts of different systems, all trying to then connect back to a central database that was just not an ability to be insightful. So you would get leadership that asks those key questions of, hey, where do we sit on open recs right now? Or how do we tie our financial resources, which was in a completely disparate system? We were actually PeopleSoft, and try to connect those two things together. And as you can imagine, from an executive standpoint, that seems like an easy question. That should be something that should be answered. In the background, we were all paddling like ducks, trying to piece together spreadsheets and all these different systems across the institution. And at the end of the day, the results were inaccurate. They weren't timely. And it really didn't position our leadership to be strategic moving forward. So that really painted a tough picture for us as we were trying to understand, how do we move forward? How do we get to that point where this is a key piece of our strategic plan, that we can manage those resources? And so that was really the impetus for the journey, was this place where we really couldn't make strong decisions based off of data. And at the end of the day, in this generation, data has to be those key drivers in making those strategic and value decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And certainly if you're paddling like a duck, you want to be paddling for kind of student experience and for
Absolutely.
transforming teaching, learning, and research, not for open requisitions.
Not for the base reports, right? Yeah. It should be about value add, not straight transactional information. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Now, kind of at the end of the day, and I know this might be kind of a bit of blasphemy for me to say this as an Oracle employee, it's not really as much about technology. Technology is just a tool. It's the vision. It's the strategy that they're driving to. And I know kind of Ignite, as I tried to cheekily kind of speak to kind of earlier, kind of factored kind of into this. Can you kind of talk through kind of the bigger picture at Baylor?
Nicole, thank you. I think Jon and I make a bit of an interesting team. Jon referenced that this journey began in 2016. In 2016, I was at another R1 university as a chief business officer. Really thought that I might stay there for the remainder of my career. Got really interested in what was going on at Baylor. Really excited about the Illuminate strategic plan and the drive to become R1 Tier 1, and ended up coming to Baylor after Jon and the team had made the decision and convinced the Board of Regents to migrate to the Oracle Cloud. I'll have to admit, I wasn't real excited about another ERP. After 25, 27 years in higher ed, I'd thought, well, maybe I won't have to do that again. But, after a week on this campus, I was one of the biggest fans. I experienced and saw the things that Jon just described. I couldn't get basic information. I couldn't get basic operational reports, much less to gain strategic insight and real business intelligence. I also learned more about the system and the processes. And so let me describe 3 things that I believe typified Baylor. And as you noted, we've addressed all of those things, not just the technology. One, the disparate systems that Jon referenced. I think in HR alone, there were upwards of 10 or more disparate systems just for the HR functions. They were doing evaluations in one system, which went nowhere. They just stayed there. Job descriptions in another, payroll in another, just an incredible morass of unconnected systems with information that didn't match. So addressing those disparate systems was a big deal. So that impacted, that technology from Oracle enabled us to get on a single platform across all of these applications. Number 2, I call it, Baylor was typified, Jon, no offense, you all did some great work, but it was fake automation. So employees across the university, when they logged into these homegrown systems, BearQuest and other neat acronyms, believed that their workflow was automated. Well, it was more like the Wizard of Oz. You pull the curtain back, and it's really just an automated message sending system that went to multiple people who then printed it off and went and logged into one of these other disparate systems, entered data, might misinterpret the message that was hand keyed in this fake automation system. So you can just imagine, apply that to any area of finance or HR. This is what was going on behind the scenes. So totally, really paper driven, really manual, no real automation, no edit checks, and all of those things that we now have through Oracle. People thought they had, and they couldn't figure out why there were so many problems. And then the third thing that I learned is that in this culture, the exception had become the rule. So I would note, well, gosh, that doesn't look like it makes sense. Why are we doing it this way? Well, in 1993, somebody had a need for, and this type of accommodation and adjusting for exceptions really had become the norm. So you can imagine how cumbersome and the number of errors and the transactions cost. So Oracle has allowed us to get on a single platform. It has a real automated workflow, for real, with edit checks and audits and things that eliminate mistakes, eliminate errors, and also exceptions cannot be the rule. Our students expect efficiency, good stewardship of their tuition dollars. We owe it to everybody that we work for to be as efficient and effective as possible. So our experience with Oracle is that those key things were all addressed.
Now, Brett, I'm definitely going to bring back the idea of fake automation to the ERP and HCM product teams, because they'll feel very good that they have, in fact, real automation in their product. Now, I know there's a few kind of specific kind of examples. I often think a little bit about, we've talked before in the past about payroll and what happened as we moved to the Oracle system. Do you want to kind of share a little bit of detail on that?
That's probably my favorite now that we've addressed it. But I remember it, and let me go back just a little bit, because you hinted at this, But we established guiding principles very early on in this project. I've seen many universities move to a new system and never change anything. Let's make this new system do what we've always done. Our first guiding principle was simplification and standardization. Our second guiding principle was transformation. You'll note that neither of those reference technology, but we wanted to simplify all of the work that we did and to standardize it, not do things differently in every unit or every college or every silo that existed. And then number two, to really transform our work. And I think payroll may provide the best example of both simplification, standardization, and transformational change. So when we were value stream mapping this process, I was shocked, as were I think a lot of people. I don't think John or many of us at the executive level even knew that Baylor was running 11 different payroll cycles each during a month. That's essentially more than one payroll cycle in less than every 2 days. So just fathom, just imagine that. Imagine the errors. Imagine the workload. Something else that was going on in payroll, the exception had become the rule. We would deduct your mortgage payment if you would like and remit that for you. If you bought a snack at the snack shop or a meal and you wanted to fill out paper, of course, we'll just payroll deduct that so that you don't have to get your card out of your wallet or change. So it was a very, very service oriented, but was really driving cost up and resulting in people not focusing on, as John noted earlier, value add work. So post go live with Oracle Ignite, we now have 2 payroll cycles. I had fought for one, but I compromised and said, okay, 2 is better than 11. And through that process, we also eliminated many of those things that were very costly and not adding value. We don't deduct for your mortgage or your car payment or your snacks anymore. And people have adjusted just fine. So I think those are a couple of reasonable examples that share the transformation.
Excellent. Thank you, Brett. Though I imagine there was probably more than one meeting about losing the snack deduction. I think I would have been a little sad about that, but it is not teaching, learning, and research. That's for sure. So you trusted Oracle with this transformation, this kind of deeply rooted kind of effort to kind of open the next chapter kind of for Baylor, kind of as it drives to R1 status. Kind of what were some of the overarching reasons to kind of put your trust or your faith in Oracle for this journey?
You know, Nicole, I'm going to start off and be really transparent as Brett was in this process, because it was a process that had multiple facets, as well as really changing over time. When we first started doing this evaluation in 2016, we looked at all the vendors in the space, we brought them in, they did demos. To say that we were underwhelmed overall by the space is probably accurate. Yeah. To say that we were left wanting more because we were thinking this is a generational choice and we need a system that really represents where we see ourselves going as an institution, to be able to gather that data across all the systems. And fortunately, we ended up taking a pause. There was some institutional change that occurred, and it was just a period where we hit a pause. And we came back in 2017, in late 2017, and revisited this. And as we brought in the vendors, frankly, some of the questions were interesting because we went through the demos, and afterwards people were like, is that the same Oracle product that we saw before? Because it doesn't look anything like what we had seen before. That can't be the same product. And I think what it pointed to us is around this continuous improvement and this investment that you're actually realizing and seeing in tangible ways. And it moved the needle in ways in 18 months that, frankly, we didn't even think was possible. And so I think that was one of the key factors for us is we saw an investment and a commitment to improving the platform, to meeting the needs of the customers and delivering upon what we were seeing as our future needs and vision. So that's kind of with the CIO hat on that we're kind of talking about that piece of it. I think the other unique perspective that I can bring to the conversation is also wearing that CISO hat. And, you know, as we've talked about ERPs, they're where you store a lot of sensitive personal information. There's certainly high risk assets. And for most organizations, significant resources go into protecting those. And so when I take a step back and really look at what Oracle is bringing to the table with the ability to protect our data very proactively and dedicate a large number of staff to doing that in ways that, frankly, we as an organization couldn't imagine, right? I mean, we could not make an investment like that and execute for that one particular application at the level and rate with which Oracle does. Being able to do things like the break glass, the continuous backup pieces, just all these components where we sit back and go, wow, that is what we would strive to as an operational organization. And we don't see how we would be able to meet that at a cost level, right? Because that's the other thing, it's this apples to apples. And I think one of the things that we talk about with cloud is people always say, was cost savings realized? And I said, tell me these were the same things we're talking about in the first place, because they aren't. What we were doing before in the past isn't anything near operationally what we have today from a redundancy, a DR, and all those components. And so that's a piece of it that I think people need to really sit back and look at is, what is this suite of applications delivering holistically for you and making sure that it aligns then with your strategy. And that's the piece that we did. And fortunately, we had that pause, because that pause really allowed us to take the time and for the product space to develop in the way that became a clear winner. And the choice with Oracle made absolute sense and was a no-brainer at that point for us. And so that was very nice timing is the way I look at it.
Excellent. And Jon, I'm so glad that you point out the security aspect, because I mean, security is not just at Oracle, not just something we see as doing as a separate activity, but something that is kind of part of everything that we do. It's in our culture, it's in the DNA of our product. It's not a after the fact activity that gets kind of swept over the products.
No bolt-on security.
No bolt-on security, no.
Yeah, and Nicole, I would just like to echo what Jon shared. The security, and not just purely security from a data perspective, but business continuity. Having 24/7, 365 global security focused on Little Baylor or whatever, fill in the blank of your school's name. It's impossible for us to operate with that level of security that we're able to obtain from a partner like Oracle. Number two, those same resources come to bear on the development of the product. And Jon just gave you a perfect example that in the span of 12 months, the development, the progress, the continuous improvement that they experienced as a potential customer blew their minds, is a scientific term. And we're seeing that same type of progress, development, continuous improvement quarterly with updates. And the incredible thing is I was very deliberate to refer to Oracle as a partner, because we do have a seat at the table as you all work to make improvements and address functionality and new ideas and new. It's not like waiting 2 years for the version X.X of fill in the blank of your favorite ERP. It's real time. It's on a daily basis. So that's been incredible. And then also I would say just my experience with Oracle over the past 30 years in higher education. I don't think there's a stronger corporate entity in the IT field. And it's just been a great experience before you all have developed this suite of solutions, and I see that improving. So it's been a great relationship, but we're expecting more. It's got to continue to improve.
We've got lots of stuff planned.
All right.
That's for sure. Just be ready. Those quarterly releases, and keep up, keep pace. So, kind of turning a bit to kind of the migration itself, kind of how did you all prioritize kind of which systems to migrate, kind of, and when?
Nicole, when you ask that, I mean, I think the initial response you get from anybody on our campus was, we need to do it all. Right? I mean, you need to do everything, because the only way we're going to get that vision of being able to see everything connected was to have that holistic approach. A lot of folks look at a phase project for a number of reasons, whether it be resources or timing, which we certainly learned some lessons around timing through our project. But really, we went with a holistic big boom approach. ERP was implemented, HCM, most of the modules within each of those components. So we brought in things like recruiting and absence and all those components, payroll, general ledger, looking at the procurement and the expenses piece, all brought in within one massive project. And the other thing is the enterprise project management platform, the EPM platform, and using that for capital project management, as well as looking at how we could leverage that for research, which Brett certainly brought a lot of light to us on that component that we weren't ready for. I mean, I think that's the other piece about this project is, up until Brett's arrival, I'll say it was viewed as a mostly technology-driven project. Our partner kept telling us, you know, this isn't just a technology project. And I think a lot of us went, we know. And then rubber hits the road, right? And you start realizing, oh, wow, me sitting in a CIO seat, I didn't know how important a chart of accounts was. I had no idea, but boy, did we spend some time understanding a chart of accounts. and so I think that's the piece of it is really to have this execution on the other side, where you're going to get the business intelligence and the strategic piece. These modules have to be connected in a very cohesive way. And so I think that's the piece of the project that I'm really excited about is we did jump in with both feet. And we saw that we were at a point that we needed to do that in order to get that execution on the other side. And so that was the piece that I'm really excited about.
So Nicole, the only thing that I would probably add that I would share as maybe an encouragement for folks considering this, or folks that are just beginning the process or the journey, don't just focus on what you know. Don't just focus on what you know is broken. And I think Jon described a little bit of that in the initial kickoff for this project, because there were important elements that were not a part of this originally. For example, the project modules for grants and capital projects. There was a feeling that, well, those weren't as important and what we were doing wasn't broken. I think what we failed to do is say, where do we want to go? It's not, is it broken right now, or is there a critical need for it? But the aspirations to become an R1 Tier 1 university mandated a much bigger focus on that research component. So we made a pivot after I got here. We added that component. We had to get another subgroup working on that and to get integrated with finance and HR. Another piece that was not originally a part of the project was procurement. There were huge gains to be made in procurement, and I'm excited, if you'll let me, to share some of those with you a little later in the discussion. But the team very quickly realized, yeah, we need to focus not on just what our crises are right now, but where do we want to go? Where are we trying to go? And do we have the tools currently required to get there? The answer was no. So we rolled in the research piece, the project management piece, procurement, and enter in a much better position because of that. And we were still able to do that on a very aggressive time frame within the original budget. So great partnership from Oracle. And I'll have to say, we would have never made it through those two additional pieces had Oracle not really taken us on as a bit of a special project to make those pieces successful.
Now, these solutions, they have built-in kind of best practice. I mean, Oracle solutions, they're built on a decades-long kind of history of supporting finance and HR functions and even higher education kind of more broadly. Kind of how did Baylor incorporate kind of those best practices in their, I guess, what we call your new practices kind of at the institution?
Yeah, Nicole, thank you for that question. Very, very important. This part might get a little bit boring, but to do this right, you have to honestly and thoroughly, very methodically value stream map every step in your current processes, even the ones that are ugly and you don't like to admit that that's a fake workflow. You have to document what you're currently doing. And then great documentation from Oracle exists, as well as our implementation partner Huron, to help us compare the delivered functionalities to what we were doing. And then to determine how do we want to move forward? Are we going to take the delivered functionality as it is? In some cases, we, believe it or not, actually took a step or two out of delivered functionalities because we wanted to focus so much on transformation and simplicity. In some cases, perhaps because of regulatory constraints in different environments, you might have to add a step. But the point is, Oracle, in working with all of its partner schools, they've done the heavy lifting, they've done the hard work, and best practices come delivered. So there's really no excuse for anything other than tweaking at the margins, particularly if you're as inefficient as we were. So that was kind of the model.
Excellent. Thank you, Brett. Now, the people factor kind of into all of this in important ways. And we understand that you've had some very creative ways of engaging employees to educate them about the project, encourage them kind of as you kind of go along. Can you describe some of those efforts kind of for the audience?
So, Jon, you're more exciting than I am. I was going to let you describe some of the sessions and some of the engagement opportunities.
There was plenty with the change management, but I think, Brett and Nicole, the best way to handle this is to show the video.
Oh, hello, Baylor. I heard you're trying to implement a new financial system. As a former accountant at Dunder Mifflin, I know the challenges that may be facing you. And this is what I have to say. Angela Martin would approve. But Angela Kinsey, the Baylor grad, is super proud of the faculty and staff for their dedication at transforming the way they do business. As Baylor works towards R1 Tier 1 status, Ignite is going to be a huge part of that. So way to go, and hey, sick 'em bears! Mwah! Also, I miss you all, and I want to come visit.
Thank you, Angela. My congratulations and gratitude to everyone for reaching the Ignite finish line. This tremendous accomplishment was led by a core team of dedicated Baylor colleagues. The Ignite project started over 24 months ago. It stayed on track and on time. I said at the beginning of Ignite will change the way Baylor works to support Illuminate by simplifying and standardizing the university's processes and technology to allow more faculty and staff to focus on Baylor's mission and serve our students. This is still true. Thank you for your hard work and dedication. The hours you've spent on this project have not gone unnoticed. Ignite will transform the way we do business at Baylor, and you are a part of this transformation. As we learn to use Ignite, please remember there are plenty of resources and support available for you at baylor.edu/ignite. Sick 'em bears.
Oh gosh, I just love that. And I think perhaps next time we do something like this, we should play, kind of cast that office character at Baylor. John, Brett, we'll have to see kind of who you get cast.
Yeah. I was hoping that you would play Stanley's clip, and I'm trying to remember who else, but yeah, we had three of the actors from the series that did clips for the employees as we were preparing for this. And John, President Livingstone, is the world's best boss.
Absolutely.
Being recorded. Yeah.
Like, good stuff. Now, kind of taking a more serious tone, though the office is very serious stuff. Cost savings is often kind of a huge motivator in kind of moving processes kind of to the cloud. I mean, would you be able to share kind of a few examples of how the Oracle Cloud has helped Baylor kind of drive down costs for the university?
Yeah, Nicole, this is what I warned you about a few minutes ago. Would you please let me share this? So again, I want to share an example from HR, because our CHRO VP for HR, Cheryl Gotchis, really did the heavy lifting to drive this project and this investment so several years before I got here. And so her vision for what could be and should be, as I said, I much better understood as I got here. This will help you. To hire someone prior to our migration to Oracle involved 26 steps, discrete steps. And John, I think it was 5 different systems.
Yes.
And in most of those systems, the same information had to be entered multiple times. Well, most of us make mistakes when we're doing mind-numbing work. And that's what that is. Wasted effort, wasted time, and quite frankly, wasted talent from people that are capable of doing so much more. That's now a 6-step process in a single system, the Oracle system. So I think that's one of the best highlights. The fact that we have freed up so much time for people, I have seen over the past year, the campus willing to embrace new ideas, entrepreneurial activities that in the past they didn't have time to do. They were worried about entering information, double and triple checking and reconciling. And as John said, pulling spreadsheets together. I'll share 2 examples over this past year. Our campus was able to double summer school revenues in 1 year. And I know in large part it's because people had time and they were willing to tackle this, when in the past, I've been told that there was just resistance. No, we don't have time. We can't fit that in. We can't do it. Additionally, in 1 year, we've grown our online revenues. And these are online programs that had already existed. So it's not really pandemic related. But people were freed up to spend much more time on this, and generated $37 million more dollars in that space. And real quick on P2P metrics, prior to Ignite, the number of e-procurement catalogs available to Baylor employees, 0. As of today, we're approaching 30. The number of suppliers pre-Oracle Ignite, 22,000 plus. Transformational change, that number is now just under 7,000. The P card purchases were the norm. That should be an exception. But the exception had become the norm. Over $2 million a month in P card purchases. That's been brought down to about 650,000. And in 1 year's time, these changes that have been enabled through Ignite, we've documented savings of over $3.5 million. So that's a lot of tuition dollars. That's a lot of research. That's a lot of teaching. That's a lot of core mission activity. So those are just some quick observations that really give you some tangible evidence of what's possible. So, thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, you might not think about the back office impacting teaching and learning and research, but when you get it right, it does. Now I'm going to ask you all to get in the time machine, and we're going to go back a year in time. May not be your preferred destination. The university had just moved to kind of remote instruction. The good basketball team was feeling pretty sad about a canceled kind of tournament. And you all were in the middle of a cloud migration when every employee was working from home. I mean, Jon, I thought of you many times in March, April, and in May, and felt a little scared for you, to be honest. But as we're looking back, this was kind of an incredible learning opportunity, incredible kind of growth kind of opportunity to kind of make this change kind of under such circumstances. What do you feel that the university kind of learned, and how did it grow as a result of this experience?
Thanks for highlighting that, Nicole. I hope that no one on the call gets to go through this experience. I will say at that point, I was an interim CIO. And so if an ERP project is a way for CIO to fail, I would guess an ERP during a pandemic really ups that stake. As you said, we were coming up to our June 1, 2020 go live. It was right there. We were going through our mock go lives. We were approaching the finish line when the carpet was ripped out from under us. Everybody goes remote, not just our employees, but our consulting partners, who we've spent so much time working hand in hand across this journey, understanding each other. And from my seat, I mean, it very quickly became how? How do we do this? Fortunately, technology has come a long way. I think if we were talking 5 or 10 years ago, the collaboration tools didn't exist. The ability to stay connected in the way that we can today wasn't even possible. And so that was the good news. We had the foundation. The other question is do we have the leadership support? And that was the piece that I had no doubt about. I knew that throughout this project, the thing that was behind us 110% was our leadership. Was Cheryl Gotches and Brett Dalton and our provost, Brickhouse, as well as the President Livingstone. And they knew that this was very critical for the institution. And at the end of the day, we were there. The processes were built, the systems had been built. It was really about executing change management. And believe it or not, one of the tools that we brought to the table that we hadn't planned on bringing to the table was Oracle Guided Learning, which was a huge piece of us being able to transition into a remote go live, where we could continue that change management with our constituents, make sure that they had the tools at their fingertips to understand how to use the system. Because that was really the piece we were at in the project is we're going live and we have to make sure our constituents are ready for that piece. So that was really a significant pivot to get that implemented in 90 days so that it was ready for those people to get in and use the system. I certainly wouldn't recommend going through this process, but it has been incredible to see the way the team came together, and failure wasn't an option. And I think the other piece of this that's so interesting is our functional and technology teams have become one. They work hand in hand in a very unified way. And I look at it historically, it was you threw something over the fence and you waited to see if it came back at some point, right? And it's just this matrix project team that is so immersed with each other in day-to-day activities. And so I think that outcome of really making sure that our resources are adding value to the institution going forward with this continuous improvement is the piece that's really neat to see as this outcome. And I think the pandemic forced that even more, right? It was there, but it really tested what was in existence already.
Yeah, I can't add a lot to what Jon said, but as I heard you describe it, Jon, I think what we saw was that this experience accelerated the cultural transformation in ways that we could not have envisioned or imagined. But it forced tearing down of firewalls, it forced tearing down of silos, it forced people to come together in ways that they never had and to work together remotely via Teams in ways that we never had. So really, I think, Nicole, it accelerated where we knew we wanted to go, but we had no idea that the pandemic would be the accelerant for that. So yeah, can't imagine doing it without Oracle as a partner or not doing this on Oracle Cloud's products.
Well, we're glad you got through that and you're a better institution kind of for it. The question though is kind of what would you might have done differently, kind of looking back?
So I'd be remiss if I didn't share this. We did our transformation with a June 1, 2020 go live. And as a result, we were mid-payroll quarter. Little did we completely understand, I think, what that meant from a data migration standpoint, a data conversion standpoint, and getting everything in that payroll system accurate, all of the current balances. I think when I take a step back, I look at, did this add value to the institution and to the project? And I'd have to be honest, not really, right? This isn't an area where I would say there was a value add, and boy, there was a lot of resources spent to make that happen with that timing. And so I think, when I look back, it's making sure you understand holistically those decision points and that the resources you're committing are actually adding true value to the project. So that was certainly a lesson learned. There's a lot of reasons. It was our fiscal change. We always talk about in these projects, there's those two key metrics of, is it a year change or is it a fiscal change? And which one's going to be the priority? We chose the fiscal change. I'm not sure. We'll see what Brett thinks if we would do that again, but we've got hopefully another generation before any discussion like that would ever occur.
Yeah, that was a mistake. Plain and simple, that was a mistake. Nothing good came of that. But the good news is we were able to pull it off and survive. But yeah, don't do that. Don't do that.
That sounds like sage advice. Now, before we go to some questions from the audience, we're gonna have one last kind of poll. So if we can bring the poll kind of up, which of the following emerging trends in education technology do you all think will have the most impact kind of on student success? So I'll just give that a minute for folks to answer. Oh, well, this is not surprising. A continued demand for e-learning and hybrid learning, kind of really shifting kind of the change in what kind of the academic experience is for students, which certainly has many faculty, many a provost, many an institution kind of up at night thinking about what the fall will look like. So we're going to get into a couple of our questions from the audience. Do know that if you answer in the Q&A, we will definitely answer all of your questions kind of in real time if we haven't kind of already. But our first question here is, and we'll go first to Jon and then to Brett. This is a fun one. Best part of your job?
So having been at Baylor almost 22 years now, it's really about the students and the university and having the opportunity to not just be about, the bottom line and the profit and those pieces, but really as I walk out on campus, which I'm fortunate enough to be on campus today, seeing the students and the lives that we're able to support and enriching through what we provide as a university. And so it's really neat to be able to see the impact that our work does through them.
That's exactly what I was going to share. I don't know that we've ever compared stories, but the greatest part of my job is being able to work in higher education. Higher education transforms individual lives, it transforms families, it transforms communities, and it has the potential to transform societies. So having that honor, that privilege, and the responsibility, that the greatest part of my job is being in higher ed.
Absolutely brilliant. So the last question is sort of almost the one last kind of word of advice, kind of any last advice or words of wisdom you might offer kind of the folks who are on the call today who are thinking about starting midstream in their own cloud migration journeys.
So I'll jump in real quick to start. And I think there's the buzzword, right? Digital transformation. And I think we have it backwards. It's transformation on a digital platform. And transformation is the key word because the only way transformation gets executed is if you have that leadership support. And I mean support at a really deep, hard to grasp level, in that when you get in that room, if there are any cracks in that leadership, and we've seen it, many organizations, many institutions have struggled because they see those cracks. That is a must. If you don't have that leadership support, or if the CIO is being thrust as you are the leader driving this project, caution to the wind. I think you have a tough road ahead of you. And so that's the piece I would say. We were very fortunate, not only with our existing leadership, but our new leadership with Brett joining the team when he did. We wouldn't have made this journey without that influence that we had along the way.
Well, Jon, that was kind, but I don't think we would have made it without you either. Yeah, and Jon was the interim CIO, and he knows that when the going got tough, I said, well, Jon, this is your interview. We won't have to talk about it if this goes well. Just look at it as your interview. Just earn this job and keep it. And what a great leader Jon is in IT and IT security. Yeah. So words of wisdom that I would share, Nicole. I'm not sure what the audience is, what level of leadership and engagement we have, but I would encourage you to think about the rapid transformation that's occurring in our industry. I love higher ed, but we are finally, as an industry, being disrupted. This disruption came to banking, retail, all other medical. Those sectors have been through disruption, and some continue through disruption to this day. Higher ed has been insulated. That time is over. So I think the schools that recognize that and realize the pressure to be more efficient, more effective, better stewards, affordability, managing costs, delivering value. I would encourage you to look very carefully at what you can accomplish and you can achieve through a new cloud suite of services like Oracle offers. Schools that don't have that cutting edge and don't have that competitive advantage, I think are going to struggle. So just think about that as you work with your leadership, or as some of you may be in a position to make that change. If we can do it, anybody can. So yeah, be strong, be courageous. There are a lot of good partners out there. And Jon pointed to it earlier, higher education, we love to share. So if you have any questions, please feel free to follow up with us. And there's a good group of schools out there that we found to be incredibly helpful that had already moved to the Oracle solution. So be courageous, do it, and don't be disrupted. Be a part of the disruption and come out stronger.
Excellent. Thank you, Brett. And Jon, I think you should get a little badge. It says most stressful job interview ever. I think you could do a TikTok video kind of on that. But I want to thank you both for your time today. I know we've had our chats kind of over the last couple of years, and every time I feel like I learned something new, something profound, something I can use kind of somewhere else. So thank you. And thank you to the audience, the folks who are out there kind of on the line today. I mean, just as Brett and Jon have said multiple times during our time together today, it's a community, and it's an amazing conversation we can have to kind of advance kind of the usage of technology so that has a real impact on the work that we all do. So let's stay connected. If you want to follow up, kind of learn more, we have an email address. It is Customer Spotlight Series, all one word, _US@oracle.com. And if you email us, we will make sure to get you in contact with the right team. Now, there will be a 1-question survey kind of as we close out the Zoom. I think you can handle it. So just take a few seconds and offer us some feedback on kind of how we did today. And do stay tuned for our next customer kind of spotlight. This is going to be featuring Heart.io, and they are the winner of all 3 categories in Oracle's Startup Idol, including Most Creative, Best Overall Pitch, and most innovative solution. So it should be kind of a great time to learn more about this really interesting customer. So everyone, thank you. Good luck, stay safe, and we will all chat soon. Take care. Bye.